Hello and welcome to the last session of the Roxie sew along. In this video, we are going to assemble the bottom band, attach the bottom band to the bralette, and secure the front overlay. And if you've made it this far, give yourself a little pat on the back, especially after sewing through one layer of stretch mesh. So let's get started. So the first step is I went ahead and super simple stuff. I already assembled my bottom bands. So all you have to do is sew the long ends with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, long ends on the casing, and then I clip this here at like a little angle so that when it is folded back, you won't see it, it won't like peek out from the top. So once you've done that, you are going to place the overlay on top of the bralette. You're going to align it with the side seam. So the side seam of the overlay should align with the side seam of the bralette. And you will pin forwards and backwards. Okay, so now I've pinned the front overlay to the bralette, and now I am going to place the bottom band elastic into the bottom band casing. If you are doing just an elastic band like this one, then you could skip this step. Once the elastic is in the casing, then you will pin it to the bottom of the bralette. So you will align the side seam on the bottom band elastic with the side seam on the bralette. You just want to make sure that the bottom band, the front is longer than the back. So you want to make sure that you sew the front to the front and you don't sew the back to the front, because if you try to align the side seams and the front and the back of the elastic is facing the front, it's going to be too short. Okay, once the bottom band casing is pinned to the bottom of the bralette, we are going to sew that with a lightning stitch. If you do not have a lightning stitch, you can sew it with a small zigzag stitch. If you are sewing the option with this is the elastic encased in an elastic band, but if you're just using an elastic like this one, then you will lay the elastic on top of the bralette so that it's overlapping about a 1/4 inch. And then you're going to stitch it with a zigzag stitch. Super easy. It's actually so much easier than creating a casing and pinning and all that. So let's move over to the sewing machine and I'll show you the last steps. Okay, so we are going to sew the bottom band elastic to the bottom of the bralette. Going to use a lightning stitch. If you do not have a lightning stitch, you can use a small zigzag stitch. And if you can see here, but I'm going to basically stitch right, I can see where the indentation is, where the elastic is. I'm going to try to stitch as close to that as possible. Okay, once the bottom band is attached, you can serge this edge if you want, if you have a serger. If you don't, it can be left raw if you're using a fabric that doesn't fray. All right, let's go on to the very last step, which is the attaching or securing the front overlay to the bralette. And I'm going to show you a little trick in case you do not have a bar tack stitch. So your pattern has notches for where the bralette should attach to the overlay. So you're going to use that as your guide. And you're going to pin the overlay to the front bralette strap. I like to do it like this. That they're together, they could even be slightly overlapping. So if you have a bar tack stitch on your machine, you can just sew it with a bar tack stitch. If you don't, which I know many people do not, here is a little trick that you can use to sew it and get like the same effect. So I'm going to first sew with a straight stitch across both layers. I'm going to go back and forth. And this straight stitch is going to secure both layers together so they don't become separated. There's not like a little gap in between. So once I sew back and forth, then I'm going to switch to a small zigzag stitch and I'm going to zigzag back and forth. And that is it. And you'll do the same thing to the back and then you are finished. As with every video tutorial, I hope that this is a compliment to the instructions. It makes it just a little bit easier to sew lingerie, which I know it can be intimidating. So I hope you enjoyed it.